Welcome to the Redeemer Podcast. I'm your host, Zach, and today we are exploring Redeemer's mission and ministry program. I'm joined by third year student Jordan, who shares her experience in the program. If it is your first time here, make sure to like and subscribe. Check out some of our other episodes that explore various aspects of Redeemer, Christian education, and so much more. Thank you for making us part of your day. And with that, here we go. It's time. I know this is an episode that some prospective students have been asking me about and other admissions counselors. It's here. We're ready for it. We are talking about Redeemer's mission and ministry program. I'm already tongue-tied here. But you're going to help me out today. Jordan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, are you ready to talk some ministry?
Of course, I'm always ready to talk ministry.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. Well, Jordan, it's a pleasure and honor to have you on the podcast. And I know the ministry programs at Redeemer, there's a couple of different ways that students can go about it. So this episode we are going to be kind of broadly talking about ministry, but could you maybe talk about yourself and what program you're studying at Redeemer and kind of the different ministry programs there are that Redeemer offers?
Yeah, so my program specifically is called Urban and Intercultural Ministry. And my year is the last year that has urban and intercultural ministry. But now Redeemer has switched it up a bit. And I think what they've done is they've separated the mission part, or like the intercultural part, and the urban ministry part. And so mission and ministry is very similar to urban and intercultural ministry. It's basically the same thing, except some of the courses have changed slightly, but for the most part, it is a very, very similar program.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's what I'm in. And then I think like the new mission and ministry program, I think it has different streams that you can go in. Like I've heard that there's like a youth ministry stream that you can go in, and some other ones. But yeah.
Awesome. No, thank you for explaining that. That's great. And maybe could you tell our listeners and our viewers, how did you get to the, because you're in fourth year now. I know you
In
said
third year.
third year, but
Almost there.
yeah, you're almost there. You're in third year, and you said you're in a co-op term right now. We'll talk about
Yeah.
that a little bit later. But what made you want to decide to study ministry at Redeemer?
Yeah, so that's a bit of a story actually.
We like stories.
Originally originally I didn't even want to come to Redeemer. I so since like grade 10, I knew I wanted to do overseas missions, which is still something I'm considering. I'm not really sure what that looks like exactly yet, but in high school, I was like, I'm doing overseas missions. I know for sure. But I thought that I wanted to go to like more of a public university because I wanted opportunities to engage with non-Christians, and I wanted to build relationships with them, and try and share the gospel with non-Christians. And I also wanted to go for social work because I was like, oh, social work, that would be helpful for missions, I'm sure. So that was the plan. And then we were just kind of like kind of coming out of COVID, still kind of in COVID. And there were just a lot of things up in the air. And it was kind of around that time that I had to start looking for universities. And like applying. And so I started researching different universities, and I was just on Instagram one day, and there was an Instagram story for Redeemer University, and they're like, contact your admissions counselor today. And I was like, okay, I don't really want to go to Redeemer, but I might as well. I know I have to start looking at universities. So I contacted my admissions counselor for my area that I'm from, and I had a Zoom call with her, and she told me all about Redeemer and the community, and yeah, just what is offered at Redeemer and the ways that I can grow in my faith there a lot. And it sounded exactly like what I was looking for.
Mm.
And just from then on, like God just kept confirming to me through little ways that he wanted me coming to Redeemer. And so I was like, well, I guess I'm going to Redeemer. So I ended up only applying to Redeemer and then I got accepted pretty quick, which was cool. And then I was still going to Redeemer for social work. And I finished my first week of first year in social work. And I actually had a conversation with one of my housemates who is also in urban and intercultural ministry. And for some reason, I had no idea about this program. And she told me about it. And I was like, what the heck? Like, this sounds like exactly like missions, exactly what I'm looking for. And so I switched into urban and intercultural ministry. And I've been in it ever since, and it's been great. So
Wait, so you switched the second week of being at Redeemer.
yeah, like at the end of the first week.
Wow. Okay. Wow. That's great. And I tell prospective students all the times that like even if you think you know what you're studying, it's really common to switch your major or your minor, especially in your first year. So that thanks for
So
sharing that, Jordan. Wow.
yeah, I know people who have like switched so many times and like not even in their first year. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's super doable.
Awesome. We'll focus on your program here. There's lots of great programs to switch
Yeah.
around to at Redeemer, but so thanks for sharing your journey with us. And could you maybe just talk a little bit? What has your journey been like from the first year of your program to now in your third year in a co-op term? Uh,
Mhm.
maybe we'll save the co-op for a little bit later because I do definitely want to talk about co-op with you. But yeah, what's that journey been like first year till third year?
Yeah, it has definitely been a journey. Um, I think every year so far, I've looked back at the end of the year and I've seen so many ways that I have grown, just like spiritually and in my relationship with the Lord, relationally with other people, and also just with my understanding of what it means to be in ministry. Um, One thing I think about specifically is just like the concept of missions. Um, so coming into first year, I had this idea that um, missions is literally picking up and going overseas um, somewhere that you've never been before and like I don't know, like smuggling Bibles into Iraq or something. Like that in my head was what missions was, which is a totally valid and important part of missions.
Yeah.
But I think being at Redeemer and throughout my program and with the classes I've taken, I've really been able to broaden my understanding of what missions is. Um, and it's still like something I'm thinking about and learning more about, but I've kind of come to this fuller understanding that missions is something that is given to every Christian. Like all Christians are called to live on mission for Christ, whether that be in I don't know if they're a doctor or if they work at Shoppers Drug Mart. Like all Christians are called to be on mission for Christ. And
Yeah.
although I think there is a really, really important aspect to living on missions, which is some people are called to go overseas, um, I think living on mission in general is more bringing the kingdom to right where we are and loving God first and loving our neighbors as Christ would love them. And I think that's a really, really big part of being
Mm.
on mission as a Christian. And so I think that's really helped me formulate my understanding of missions and that although going overseas is a very important thing, and some people definitely are called to that, it's not a calling that's any higher than being a doctor or working at Shoppers Drug Mart. Um,
So, So, Jordan, sorry, I'm gonna interrupt you for a sec here.
Yeah.
All fascinating, things, and it's amazing to me that there's a program at Redeemer or any school that has mission as a scholarship, like as something you're pursuing,
Mm.
intellectually, but also spiritually, and like could you kind of paint a picture for our viewers and our listeners? What does the classroom and like the hallways look like when you're studying with your peers or in a class? Like, do you guys just talk about like like relational ministry or overseas missions or like best practice? Like,
Mhm.
what does that kind of look like?
I really love that question. One of the joys of being at Redeemer, um, and being surrounded by other people who are passionate about living on mission for Christ, specifically within the mission and ministry program, is like it's so normal to have conversations about what it means to live on mission for Christ, whether that just be like talking about our personal relationships with Christ and how we can grow in those, and like doing Bible studies with each other, or what we're learning um, in our own walk with God. Or like I have one friend who's also in mission and ministry, and like we talk about different ways of doing missions all the time. Like recently, I had a conversation with this friend, and we talked about the importance of like international student ministry and how that's actually a really effective way to do missions, because you are literally engaging with people from unreached countries that have no access to the gospel. They come to Canada, and um, you're engaging with them and sharing Jesus with these people. And then they go back to their countries. And as natives, they have this opportunity to share that with their friends and families around them. And generally, in missions, natives are a lot more effective in sharing
Yeah.
the gospel than people from outside the country are. Um, yeah, so just conversations like that, and how we can be effective in ministry is super, super normal. And I find I'm having a lot of those recently. So it's really cool to have people spur you on in what you feel like you're called to, and really feel supported in that, and get to spur other people on as well, and just have those conversations. But
That
yeah.
that sounds like just a phenomenal experience for your undergraduate when
Yeah.
studying ministry. Do you have any like favorite courses or favorite projects or parts of the program that you've experienced, that you could share with our audience?
Yeah. Um I've had a couple. So, one that comes to mind is actually the oral communications course. It's a first year
Oh,
course. And I personally, I loved that course because it taught me so much about how to relate to people, how to communicate with people well, and how to build positive relationships, how to listen well, things like that, and how to do public speaking. Because I feel like in any sort of ministry role, it's likely that you'll have to speak in, actually in any vocation in general, you'll have to speak in front of people. And
yeah.
so I found that to be really helpful. And I find myself using the tools I learned in that class a lot, especially in my co op. And then another course that really stands out is the missions course. There's an actual course that's called missions for my year. And in previous years, it was two separate courses, but I think they combined it now that they have the mission and ministry program. And I just learned so much about the importance of going into a culture as a learner. So,
Mhm.
going into a culture not thinking that um, we in the West have the answers, or we have things that they need to change specific to the culture. And I learned a lot about what is called contextualization. So, how do we go into a different culture and disciple them in a way that aligns with their culture? So, for example, the way we do church in the West is a very westernized version of church. So having a cafe at our churches is not something that's in the Bible, or um, or like have it, or like even the design of our buildings, like it's not something that's specifically written in the Bible. So when we go
Mhm.
into different cultures, how do we take um, what is in scripture, the gospel, without all the other cultural attachments we attach to it, and just give it to the culture and allow them to receive that gospel and respond to it and be discipled in a way that is appropriate with the context in their culture. Um, so that's something that I've learned in the missions class, and was something that was really emphasized in that class. Um, so yeah, those are two courses that really stand out that I've really enjoyed. But there's a lot of other courses, and I will say, like a lot of the ministry courses and theology courses at Redeemer are like life-giving. Like I
Yeah.
genuinely like feel like I grow in my faith and my relationship with God in these courses. Um,
Mm.
and I think that's amazing, because I think to be in ministry, like it's important to have a personal relationship with the Lord. And it's really special to be able to sit in class with my Bible open and just be in awe of God, as the professor is lecturing. So yeah, that's kind of been a bit of my experience in our
No,
courses.
thanks for sharing. That's an awesome experience, and it's great that
Yeah.
your program is life giving, and you receive that life. You could you maybe I know we talked a little bit off camera about this. Could you talk about your co-op placement?
Mhm.
And I know Redeemer is big into experiential learning. We as an institution, we don't want students to feel like they're just graduating with just head knowledge. We
Mhm.
want them to gain practical ministry experience in the program, so that they're being set up for success after the program as well. Where are you currently co-oping, and how's it going?
So urban, or yeah, my program, Urban and Intercultural Ministry, has an option to do co-op with it, which it basically just extends your program a year. So instead of doing 4 years at Redeemer, I'll be here for 5 years in total. And it's 2 8-month work terms. Um, so I'm in my first work term right now, and I'm at a place called JFJ Hope Center in Mississauga. And basically, it's two things. It is an adoption agency, and it's also a mission that has parenting programs, and um, they have something called a care cupboard, where they will basically receive donations of essential items to care for babies and young children. So diapers, wipes, baby clothes, formula, toys, anything you can think of in that regard. And so low income families can come into the care cupboard, book an appointment, and basically take the essentials that they need in order to care for their families. And so all of this is really to support um, people who are maybe experiencing an unplanned pregnancy, or just young families who are struggling to parent well, in order to really support them and strengthen those families. Because at JFJ Hope Center, we believe that strong families build a strong world. And so, yeah, that's been a really a cool way to kind of apply some of the things I've learned, and I've found that I've really grown experience wise, being at JFJ Hope Center.
Mhm.
And I, being in urban and intercultural ministry, and having had some experience fundraising in the past with some other mission trips I've done, um, I am doing a lot of the fundraising aspect at JFJ Hope Center. So I've currently been reaching out to a lot of churches, cold calling them, seeing if they would be willing to partner with us in this journey and in this mission that we have in our community. So,
Very good. No, that sounds like a great co-op to take what you've learned in the classroom, and apply it with your own skills and goals and desires to gain that experience for whatever the Lord has for you next.
Yeah.
On that,
Yeah.
I know whenever I ask students this question, some of them have a very specific ideas, others more open. But any idea what your life post Redeemer looks like and what you're hoping to do with your degree?
I honestly, I don't really know yet. Yeah, I definitely have considered missions, obviously, which is
Hmm.
why I'm in this program. I definitely think I want to do ministry of some sort, whether that would be local or overseas. I have done some overseas work. Um, I had the opportunity to do some work in Iraq this past summer, which was cool.
Very
So
cool.
I'm not sure if missions is a long term thing for me or not. Still something I'm kind of trying to discern. Um, but yeah, I'm kind of just trusting the Lord with my future in that and seeing which doors He opens. And yeah, I'm sure He will use me where He will be glorified the most with my life. So
Amen. That's no, that's awesome. And again, I don't think you have to have it all figured out. Certainly not by your third year of university.
yeah.
There's still opportunities that will present themselves for sure.
Mhm.
Um, but on that note, what advice would you have for students who are considering one of Redeemer's ministry programs?
Hmm. I think um, first, definitely trust the Lord um, and really invest in your relationship with the Lord. If you end up going with a ministry program or just going to Redeemer in general, this is an incredible time to grow in your relationship with God. And it is the single most important thing you could do. So definitely take this opportunity at Redeemer in our ministry programs when you're immersed in learning about God and the Bible and how to do ministry well and how to cultivate a relationship with the Lord. Like, take advantage of that. Um, and yeah, really be intentional, I think, about growing in your relationship with the Lord. And then another thing is, and I'm taking this from a book that I read for a class in first year, um, the importance of really taking what you study seriously in ministry. I think sometimes there's a temptation to procrastinate and to um, not always take our courses seriously. Especially because sometimes like you do get a lot of schoolwork in university, but I think in ministry um, we're dealing with people's eternities. We're dealing with
Mm.
people's souls, and that is such a precious and beautiful and important thing to be entrusted with. And so, something I really believe in is, yeah, really taking what I study seriously because I know that it could impact someone else's eternity and someone else's life. And so, yeah, that would probably be my advice.
Ooh, that's great advice. Great advice, Jordan, for sure. And I guess just a follow up to that, kind of practically, you talked about this. Taking your studies seriously. Is the program is it a lot of papers or is it like multiple choice
Hmm.
tests or essays? Like,
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, because different programs are more heavy on different things. Um, Urban and intercultural ministry, or I guess missions and ministry, is a very more paper heavy course. So that means, or sorry, program. So it means we have less tests, but we have more papers
yeah,
and assignments as well. So yeah,
that's cool. Yeah,
but
and I'm assuming a lot of readings too.
yeah, a lot of readings as well. Yeah. All courses have a lot of readings though, but
That's fair.
there's a lot of readings and papers and then sometimes assignments and more of that than there are like tests and exams, which I personally really appreciate. I prefer to write papers over writing tests, so it's something that's definitely up my alley. But yeah.
That's great. Yeah. Well, Jordan, this has been a pleasure chatting with you. Lord bless you as you serve in your co-op in a great organization, and as you head into your next year of school again, and wherever the Lord would lead you. But Jordan, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It was great to be here.
Absolutely. And if you're watching this and you want more information about the mission and ministry program at Redeemer University, feel free to connect with us. Email us at admissions@redeemer.ca, and we'd be happy to connect. God bless, and we will see you in the next episode.
Bye.